Hello, everyone. Welcome to another Angular Air. Happy Friday. I hope you're all doing well. My name is Alyssa, and with me today, I have our two amazing panelists, Mike, Rocky, and Justin. How are you doing, Mike?
I'm doing well. It is Friday, and I'm ready for a weekend.
Oh,
I know it was just Thanksgiving weekend here, and we had a long weekend, but I'm ready for another one.
Amen to that. What about you, Justin? How you doing?
Pretty much the same. I'm missing the green hat. We could have totally coordinated, Brocky. I didn't realize you're going to wear the white hoodie. I got the white hoodie.
My hoodie's weird. Well, first of all, it's cream, but it's short sleeves.
Oh,
what? Look, I'm telling you. I just needed the green hat memo. We would have been
okay, but like seriously, I know it's not the topic of today's show, but what is with short sleeve hoodies? It's like they're resurrecting.
Oh, super comfortable. It's
Whence
like
they came.
you're warm in the core, but you're kind of like free in the arms. Yeah, it's like a good
breezy.
balance. I like it.
Mine was an unintentional purchase. I saw it on the rack, and I was like, I really like that. I went up to it. I was like,
God.
It's short sleeves. I like it. I'm comfortable and everything else. So
now I feel like Jeff would tell us that we're influenced by Belichick, and that's why we got the short sleeve hoodies. But I don't know. We'll see.
Though
certainly not.
You may not have a green hat, but maybe I could just quickly shave my head.
I'm here for that. Let's do it on air.
It'd be the best episode ever.
It would
definitely be the hairiest. So. All right. Let's all say hello to our guest, longtime friend and community member, Jeff Whelpley. How you doing, Jeff?
Good. Thanks for inviting me.
So good to have you. I wonder what is our. I see your shirt. I see your flex. You want to show it off? Oh yeah, there it is. So tell me, what are we talking about today? Is it the new logo? Is that what we're?
No, not the new logo. No, this was actually from Justin and I go back and forth at various times of a lot of times random stuff. But we were chatting about developer workflow with AI tools and stuff like that. And I was like, okay, what we're talking about now can be a show. We should just do this and talk about how we're using AI tools to help us build better apps and to be better developers.
I love it. That's wonderful. And honestly, a lot of the best shows come from conversations like that. So I'm so glad you guys did. It looks like Tayamba from South Africa was asking about the Angular shirts. So at least the one I got was from the Angular team. They sent them to the GDEs. Is that where you got yours as well?
Yeah, they should start to sell them though. I'm surprised I haven't seen that up. You know what?
There's going to be a store? Wait, has there always been a store? And I'm just now learning about this?
Okay. I was saying, I hope that there would be. I don't know, but I will check on that and actually tweet about it later because if there isn't, I will try to make sure that becomes a new thing.
Well, and I'm going to be at NGConf with some team members. And so we'll see if you can, make it to NGConf this upcoming year. Maybe we can
I'm going to be there this year. Definitely.
Yay.
Definitely.
So all I need to do, because Jeff's going to be there, I'm going to be there. Mike, are you going to be there?
I was looking for the mute button. I will be there. I was nodding.
So you know what we need? We need a gun with t-shirts. T-shirt cannon.
T-shirt gun. Don't say we need a gun. We need a t-shirt cannon.
T-shirt cannon. A t-shirt cannon. That way we can make sure. I think that's going to be a really good prize, especially since
I actually prefer the slingshot better. To be honest, it's more physical. Have you ever done the t-shirt slingshot? It requires 3 people. It's not as efficient, but it's more fun.
Okay, I'm writing this down on the desk. T-shirt slingshot because I didn't even know this existed. Excellent.
I'm tuning out. I'm Google searching. I'll be on Amazon if you need me.
I used to. I mean, this is a total side story, but I actually interned for the New England Revolution, which is one of the MLS teams, Major League Soccer teams. The year after they first started back in 1998, 1999, and we actually started. I mean. I don't want to say we started shooting shirts in the stands. That's dumb. But I don't feel like it was as popular of a thing back then. But that was my job basically. During the game we would go around and use the slingshot and like launch shirts into the stands.
That is so. Did you ever have the cannon before that, or was the slingshot the OG thing that you like started with?
OG for sure. Yeah,
Excellent.
the cannon's too high tech for me.
Excellent. So, Justin, what were you guys talking about? Tell me how this conversation started, so we can have some context on AI. Do you remember what kicked it off? Are you guys both using Copilot? Are you Copilot developers? Yeah.
Well, I know that sometimes companies don't allow Copilot. They restrict it, but yeah, mine doesn't care.
Okay.
I think I do think it's amazing for sure. Do you guys use Copilot?
I've only ever got to like dabble with it. I'm one of those not allowed, so like I can't. I cannot, but I would love to. I mean, I've seen amazing things with it. What are you guys? Have you?
I have not. I'm old and get off my lawn type of dev, so I just type it out myself and work through it. So as of now, I haven't. It's not that I haven't been told; it's just something I haven't felt like I've needed at this point. But I'm open to be turned around there, converted.
I mean, it's not
Tell me on
necessary. It's not an essential thing. I mean, it saves you like seconds at various times during the day. You know, it's not like a crazy thing, but it's just like little periods of delight. You know, when you're starting to do something work and you have something in your mind, like, okay, I got to type this whole out. So you know what you're going to do. Like, this is the way it works a lot for me when I'm using Copilot, when I like, when it works really well, is that I have something in my mind, like, and I know that it's going to take me like another minute to type this out. Like, I already have a kind of program in my mind, but then Copilot like has it, like, and I'm like, how did you know? Like, not just like a one-time thing, like this huge block of code that I was going to do. Like, how did you figure that out?
That's
and then
so cool.
Usually, actually, the funny thing is, as much time as it saves me to like type that out,
yeah,
I probably spend more time than just pause thinking about how did it figure out how to do that. And then I'm like, oh, it probably like detected this pattern or whatever else. So it probably doesn't save me any time at all in retrospect. And is more just like this
but
cool thing to have.
Is it one of those, like, it's only learning based off of you, or does it start giving suggestions right away?
Oh, no, it does for sure, is trained off of other code. But I think the most useful stuff comes when it's like watching the way that you
do it,
both what you do and in your code for sure. Yeah.
Okay. What were you going to say earlier, Justin? Have you used it?
Oh, I was just saying I was in the same camp as like a not authorized to use it.
Yeah. Do you think, okay, like, hot question, since we're on the AI subject, do you think legal people are being too strict or not strict enough? Because there's a lot of like pushback with AI usage of like what you're allowed to do, what you're not allowed to do. And there's a lot of devs that I know that are like, people aren't being strict enough. And then I'm like in the other camp of like, yeah, but I can't use anything. Like, I can't even try it. Like, what? So where do you guys think we're at right now with the industry?
So I feel like I look at it as like there's a safeguard. Like if we focus on a safeguard like we do with Git, right, in our repositories, right? Mm-hmm. Like, okay, generate it. Like, Jeff, what you're saying, like, go Copilot, do it, write it all up. But until we commit it to source branch, like, let's verify it, right? So as long as we have the verification step, then I think we're fine. Like, you know, creating that into the ether and then using that as something as a starting point or maybe even the final product, but reviewing it before we accept it and merge it in, right? I think if we're at that, then we've kind of got that safeguard.
That makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah, I think part of, I mean, maybe I'm wrong about this, but I think part of the issue of why there's these restrictions is they're worried about, the tools using your proprietary code and intellectual property for other people's purposes. But the thing is that a lot of the different AI tools have already started to clamp that down. Maybe like way early on, that happened, that it was like sharing everything with everyone. But I'm pretty sure because everybody's complained about that, at least from what I've seen, each of the, not just Copilot, but like when you use the ChatGPT or one of the related APIs, any of the AWS AI API or Google Cloud, like one of the first things they have there is like, we do not train on your data. Like, we keep it private, blah, 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 blah. So I think maybe some of that is more like fear than any kind of real thing. I guess, I don't know. Like, I maybe am not an expert on like the actual legitimate issues that might happen outside of like those kind of fears.
Wasn't it Copilot that was like suggesting code from other open source repos that then people were putting into their code without having the license because they weren't aware that that code came from another repo that had a usage license?
Oh, okay.
I don't know if it was Copilot, but something was doing that, right? Where it was scraping all open source libraries and finding, here's the way to write this method, right? No, that method's actually from this other open source library that has a license agreement on it, right? And
you would think
now the user puts it into yours.
You would think that would be something that was brought into the crawler or whatever that was actually using that data to train, to take a look at the license files of these open source code. Yeah, that's an interesting dilemma, that if it wasn't there initially, how do you scrape and pull that out?
Yeah, I think that's where things get squirrely really fast, right? Is it, Jeff, what you're saying, like with the influx of the data that trains these models, right? Where does that data come from? And then how do you vet that like that is not used in a way that's, you're breaking intellectual property and things like that go out the door, and then it just gets lost, and then there's no accountability. You're like, well, I just got it from this engine. I don't know. It didn't tell me that it was from there. I had no idea that it was, from that.
Yeah, it's interesting. You're seeing a lot of complaints about that type of thing, not just with the code AI related tools, but like the suggestions for content and images as well, right? Like for images, I thought I read a story about, some similar thing, like that they didn't want people using their imagery for some of that combined, the auto-generated images, which are super awesome.
Oh yeah, like the art type of things where they're like generating art.
Yeah.
It's
so similar thing, I think.
It's really interesting because I'm in a lot of like art communities and I collect art online, and it's been really interesting to see just what I think it's funny when people try to put rules on what art can be. It just always amuses me because I'm like, okay, because there's a big uprising of that's not real art, and I'm like, it takes some amount of talent to like comb and get what you actually want from. Not everyone could make it, and so I consider it art. But it has been interesting to see AI and how it affects us in so many channels. Honestly, my husband and I, we just can't wait until it becomes mainstream enough that it's not an add-on, that it's not an extra, that it's just built into the products that we know and use, and enhancing it behind the scenes. I think that would be an amazing place to get to. But so tell us about Angular Assembly and how you can amplify it with AI. What's that about?
Yeah, so I would break down the way, like, again, this isn't just from me. It's from, there's tons of articles about this or whatever else, but I've kind of, this is the way I think about it as well, which is like, there's kind of 5 areas for software development that a lot of the chat-based AI tools can help amplify your productivity and output or whatever. So if you want, I can go through each of those.
Yeah, tell me about them.
Okay. All right, so first is obviously like code generation, just like right off the bat. Like, and the thing is, we started to talk about this already, and it is a mixed bag because a lot of times there's mistakes. It's, there's issues with it or whatever. But I found that it's the strength of sort of the just code, like, okay, create me an example of this is like that initial example that then you work off of. So like I would very rarely generate a bunch of stuff and then just copy paste it, just start using it for many different reasons. But like when I'm just starting to understand something and I just like, okay, I just gotta like see an example of, and actually a lot of times you can Google and see just some types of examples, but the thing that Googling doesn't necessarily do as good of a job is if you want to add a bunch of parameters. Like the thing that you can do back and forth with the chatbot is like, okay, show me an example of this. Okay, that's like a basic example. What about if X, Y, and Z has changed? What if like you can keep on like saying different things are changed, and then you can get like a decent working example that at least I've found is really helpful.
No, it's awesome.
Yeah, one of the things that's cool about that is that it solves this like challenge that we've had over time of like, we can Google to try and find stuff or search to try and find stuff, but there's a level where you have to understand what to ask to search for it, right? So if you're like, I need to do that thing that does that slidey part with the UI, right? And you don't know the term that's going to get you the results, then you're kind of stuck, right? So now you're trying to ask people what that term is. And I see like this sort of area is something where you kind of describe something and it's almost that layer goes, oh, I'll hear what you're saying and I'll figure out like how to find that information for you, right? Without you actually knowing what that was. So I think that bridging of that gap is going to be beneficial because that's a challenge.
No, absolutely. Because it's honestly a talent to be able to search and articulate and find, just to be able to search is a huge something that I think all developers learn like on their feet. And because we're always thrown into situations like there's no part of our job that's like fully defined and like, it's like in this little box. So I would love it if we could use AI to bridge that gap, because like my mom, for instance, like she'll come to me with like not as technical as a developer problem, but she'll have technical issues and I will help her like hone down and like kind of develop that skill, but like to make that more widely accessible, that'd be
And the second thing, actually, which in retrospect now I probably should have made the first thing, is before you even code it is, or maybe after you start and you realize that you don't actually understand underlying the basic concepts of what's happening even, is kind of going back and forth on those concepts. And this is actually arguably a better strength than the sort of code examples, because they do, a lot of the chat-based tools, as long as it's not like a newer concept, because a lot of them are trained on data from like a couple of years ago or whatever. So that is one thing that there's a weakness there. But outside of that, you can do the similar thing of like, okay, how does SIP work, which is a protocol for messaging? Give me like a concept. Like you could even do like funny things or whatever if it helps you, of like, okay, explain it to me in terms of like airplanes, or I don't know, whatever. Like how you could kind of like change a similar thing that like obviously you can Google that stuff, but it doesn't always, the things you find doesn't always explain in the way that you want it to. So having that ability to kind of go back and forth and letting it kind of hone in on the ideal way of connecting to the way that you think about things and filling in your gaps is super helpful as well.
Is that learning curve hard though, to like work alongside it, to know like how to use it and like what to reach for, what to ask it? Like, was that difficult to get into?
Well, similar like Google search, right? Like back in the day, I know it sounds stupid, and this was like whatever 25 years ago or whatever when we started using Google search, but like at first you weren't an expert at knowing how to actually type the right thing in order to get the right result. And so it's somewhat similar, but in a slightly different way.
I used Alta Vista, so it just worked. I don't know.
Yeah.
I remember originally when Google's was first released or came out and you could access it, there was a code.google.com where you could actually search for coding things. So it was almost like there was a separate place where you can go to search for just code related queries.
And now all we have is Reddit. I'm kidding. Nobody puts code on Reddit. That'd be weird. Okay.
But you do learn different tools to be able to do that, whether or not you're using something like site colon to focus all your results from a particular site, or using plus to say, hey, it has to have this, or minus so it doesn't, or putting things in quotes for multiple words. And there's a lot of different tricks that you learn.
You actually
to be able to curate your results.
Function like that? Do you like?
Yeah, it's that domain specific language, right? That you have to learn to search, and that's what we get to bridging that gap. Like now we don't have to talk in that DSL, right? We could go back to searching on our human language sort of thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Side note real quick, I always get like confused. I'm like, do I surround this term in quotes? Do I surround multiple words in quotes? Like, how do I focus this better? Right.
Yeah, I was talking to Mike Hardington, Ionic guy, yesterday about this stuff, and he mentioned this term that I hadn't heard before. That it's these AI tools are like your rubber ducky. That like you this thing that you can kind of like just be your friend and talk, and you talk to it and kind of go back and forth and helps you out of time. Your little chat buddy. oh my God, amazing, Mike.
I've got my own.
Oh my God.
I'm my rubber ducky, but I mean that's maybe because I'm an only child, so I talk to myself all the time.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
Do you have different voices for yourself too? So
I do, absolutely. Right,
good.
I go in character, yeah.
You gotta worry when you start to reply to yourself. Like at one point, I was like, I completely agree, and Zach goes, "Who are you agreeing with?" And I was like, "Oh God,
so
myself."
You're allowed to talk to yourself. You're allowed to answer yourself and respond to yourself.
But
the only thing you're not allowed to do is say, "Huh?" Like you don't understand what you just said to yourself.
I see.
Understanding should be
100%. Yeah.
All right, number 3 is testing. Okay, so you using AI to generate code that you use for your actual app is always going to be a couple steps removed. Like at best, it'll be just kind of like giving you some thoughts, and then you still have to like do it. At least right now. For testing, actually, it can be like way more useful than that, because if you think about it, like when we're talking about like end-to-end testing, this is like where it's a pretty straightforward protocol. I mean, you're just parsing web pages, and I mean it's like stuff that they know how to do really well already, right? And you are just everything that you would normally do in Cypress or whatever else, you just do with the chat interface. And the only thing that's missing, which I'm sure, honestly, if it's not here within this next year, Justin and I are going to build this and make $1 billion. Is just that step, like small step of having the AI then actually go ahead and implement your tests for you. So like, but the creation of them, setting everything up, there's no reason why it can't do almost everything. Just simply because like that's what end-to-end testing is, right? You're describing what to do, and like the technology involved with it is in the wheelhouse of what the AI tools have to do anyways, because they're scraping the web to get all of this information as part of the kind of underlying functionality.
Could you tell us how that flow would work? I would love to see it as far as like you just like type into the console like create a test for this button,
and that we could use Gherkin syntax. Imagine, like I'm like excited about this. Yeah, like given when then, right? Given I do this, when I do this, then this happens, right? We write our Gherkin syntax that some of us are already writing for our test, and just give it to AI and go.
And
there
then
you
it
go.
generates. I see what you're saying.
Because that's human describable.
But is the AI going to like make test pieces that you didn't think about, or is it only making what you're telling it to generate? Like how?
Well, actually, you bring up a separate thing. So I wasn't thinking about what you're thinking about, which actually maybe could. So I was thinking about the first thing that you tell it what to do, and it will create all this stuff. But theoretically, you could get even more sophisticated like that. Then I have to think about it is okay, come up with some good tests for this page, just have it like look at something and so you could do like an iterative thing like that, which is actually even more sophisticated. So Justin, man, our tool is going to be even more awesome when we create it. And this thing's blowing up.
Users on users on users all the way. Yeah, totally. No, because I mean, you think about it, if you could say like, go to this form, this credit card form, and try all variants of the cards that could happen, right? And it just does it. Like, and so you're thinking about like expired versus invalid card. Like you can just say, hey, just test them all, and it knows how to find out all the scenarios and test them all for you.
I feel like it'd be so valuable too for like data sets, because there's so many times where it's like I hear my husband complaining. He's like, oh, dang, I'm on like this version or this branch and it doesn't have a verbose enough thing. So I can't actually test this feature now. And I'm just like, oh man, like it'd be great to just be like, generate these users for me, generate these cards for me. And then just like have that, like, that'd be.
I'm always hearing your husband complain too. But you know what would be an interesting ad? So talking about the idea of automating creation of your test for you. Imagine if there was integration tools into your software management software, something like Jira or GitHub or what have you, that actually just took the acceptance criteria and automatically just generated those types of end-to-end tests directly.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
As long as you're verbose enough, and again, that's a different skill that would need to be curated within your team, is somebody who can clearly define what the acceptance criteria should be. Right. Which, side note, would be amazing to have in a lot of projects because it's not always super clear. But if you had clear acceptance criteria of what you wanted to actually happen, then you could potentially just feed that directly into AI and get end-to-end tests directly out of that.
I'm being told that product is saying you're being really picky on your needs of wanting requirements and that you need
real-time feedback from product.
That's interesting because I never get any feedback from product at all.
You seem really needy. Oh, that actually would be cool. Like ask it to like give you your product specs. What should this product be doing?
One side thing to kind of note here is that, like, for obvious reasons, there's like clean separation right now between the LLM based, AI tools and, the outside world for actually doing stuff. Like having AI do stuff is something that like individual companies are doing. Obviously, like they're integrating it with, that's a lot of what they're doing is integrating it with their products and stuff like that. But like, that's where a lot of like the really big next stage of innovation is it's going to continue. The technology itself will continue to innovate, but more and more as developers, we should start looking for these opportunities of like you're never going to allow, like, for safety reasons, an AI to just like go unbridled, like have access to make changes to like give it your AWS account and like, okay, make whatever changes you want to this, you know what I mean? But in like isolated segments of like honing it to do specific tasks, like allow and enabling it to do, there's going to be more and more of these over the coming years, which will just be great stuff that we can all benefit from.
And I think there's also some ideas of, it kind of goes against my mentality of like the using a mono reaping, keeping all your code in one place. But if you have concerns about security, maybe take some of those core things that are just like utility or common things that don't necessarily have your core business logic within there. Put that in open source, put it out there to be able to allow AI to help you maintain that and test those things.
I got two more. All right. Debugging. So when something goes wrong, there's sort of two, there's probably more, I'm sure, maybe in the comments or whatever, or like other people will have like a lot of other ways that they do things. But I have two main things that I use it for right now. One is like copy and paste like a snippet of code that I'm looking at. I'm like, okay, sometimes I just say like, what may be wrong in this code? Like what am I doing wrong here? But you could ask it more specific questions, too, depending on, what you think may be going on. I've had some, there's been every now and then it gives me some good ideas for that. Like usually not, but like, every now and then it's definitely saved me a couple times.
So you'll actually just input the code. You won't ask a question. You'll just be like,
no, I'll copy and paste it. I'll ask with the preface of like, okay, here's like a piece of code that's not doing what I want or whatever. Like I'm trying to do X, Y, and Z, can you see what may be potentially wrong? And again, not every time, but sometimes it gives me an idea, definitely. But the other thing, actually, the thing I use more often is pasting in the actual log files, like the bug log files, and just like give me a summary of what's going on, or like tell me. It depends on what it is, but this is most helpful with so obviously your own custom logs. I mean, it's only going to be marginally helpful for like your own like console log output, but it's more helpful with different third-party software. Logs, so like Nginx logs, or like or maybe it is Angular syntax, or like I mentioned SIP earlier, which is like has its own debug logs for this whole, which is very long and hard to understand. There's different other protocols that, or like we use this other tool called Pulumi for doing deployments, and it outputs like a certain set of output. And pretty much not any, but like a lot of different types of third-party software, the stuff that it outputs, you can just paste it right in and be like, okay, what's happening here? And I found that super, super helpful, because a lot of times it's huge, and like it's hard for, even though I could theoretically like look through it and understand it, it's just like my eyes glaze over, and like it's just hard to like look through everything. So just like that summarization, or like using AI to like start to parse through it in a smarter way. That's been like almost on a, not daily, but maybe like weekly basis has helped me out a lot.
That's awesome.
This is like another example of that layer in front of search, right? Like I think immediately when you're talking about that is like, I look at a console log error that's like stacked on stuff, and I end up trying to parse through and say, well, what can I copy, what line, and put it into, a search engine to try and get some answers. And this is like, I would love to take that whole chunk and just be like, somebody go figure it out, search engine, go figure it out, right?
Because I think most of the time debugging is because I picked the wrong thing to hone in on, right? And so then I like go down the rabbit hole of like fixing that thing, and it's like, oh, that was actually broken because of this other dependency or this other thing. And so it's like, because I inaccurately selected the thing to debug. So that, to me, I'm like, wow, that would be such a time saver.
Right. It looks like it's a Zone.js problem. Oh no, that's just in the stack, right? It's not actually the thing.
Yes, exactly. Yes.
Okay, I was writing them down and taking notes, and I freaking blanked on number 2, because I was like, code generation, testing, debugging. What was number 2?
The concepts, like just understanding the concepts. Number 2.
Okay.
Code generation, concepts, the
testing,
debugging.
What's number 5? I'm so excited.
So this one is people definitely have different feelings on this, but you can use it for different types of code reviews. So what I mean by that is,
why would people have feelings about that? What's wrong with that?
Well, I think people have feelings on code. People have feelings on code reviews in general, right? So the thing that I wouldn't suggest that it can do, but is not necessarily, is that you actually give it a bunch of code and you're like, okay, just in a generic sense, do a code review for this. Like that's probably not going to be the most successful. Some people have done that, and you can get back some pretty annoying results. They might complain about really dumb things or whatever, depending on what you're doing. A better thing, okay, is if you have like a specific, like give it some specific instructions. So like give a snippet of code and be like, are there any potential security issues with this type of code? Like that's like a good one where it can like, it'll give you some good feedback of like, oh, you're using this library that has this, potential issue if you do it in this way, blah, blah, blah. So like that type of more isolated code review where you're like trying to get feedback on a particular type of aspect, or like, how can I make this code more testable, or like, whatever. Like it a lot of it depends on what you're trying to, like, okay, take a step back. Why do you want to do a code review in the first place? So like that's what different people do it for different reasons. And if you can kind of really define that, really put into words, then the tool can help you.
When you say code review, my mind, and I'm sure everybody else's mind, initially goes to reviewing other people's code. Do you also potentially use that to review your own code? Say, hey, I wrote this. What potential issues can you find with what I just wrote?
Yeah. Performance is another thing. Like, is there any, like, how can I make this more performant? Is there any potential performance issues? Whatever. But yeah, your own code for sure. Yeah.
Brock, you know that the first rule of PR Club is to review your own PR before you ask for review, right? Like we know that. So yeah, absolutely. It's
write it, commit it, push it.
I was gonna say,
then ask for somebody else to review it.
No, I know so many people, whether it's code, whether it's articles, whether it's just talking, that there's no editing process. It's just
push right to production.
yes.
Right.
Put it live.
Yep.
I think it's good. Let's go.
I can't believe anybody would do that.
Now, so Jeff, I think the point, like when you said that point about thinking about like what are we reviewing and what are we needing to review, like I was thinking that's the same moment, right? It's like we need to answer that, and I think that falls into what you talk about with the security, right? Like, okay, do we need to review this for security? Okay, a fit, right? Do we need to review this to try and train a developer and give them feedback and guidance? Well, maybe that falls into the realm of like, I don't want to give AI the job of doing that, right? I need to explain that. I need to, curate that teaching. So asking that question of what is it we're reviewing? What is the goal of the review can help us decide when to use what.
Definitely. So those are my 5 top things for developers. I have a couple other things like extra credit, maybe you could say, or I guess these are important topics that developers should be aware of regarding these tools. So I have 3 kind of extra things. All right. So
honestly, I don't know if you're going to top 3 for me. Like I'm so excited about the 3 and the testing. Like I'm going to be thinking about that all the time. So
no, I think the last one you will like. Potentially the last one.
Now, did you dog food this list, or is this straight from your brain, or did you ask AI to say, "Hey, I'm going to be chatting about AI. What are some of the concerns that I should have?"
So interestingly, no, I do that type of thing a lot, to be honest, and especially when I write articles, write emails, I do a lot. But it's more so that I've just been listening to so many podcasts and doing my own research. So this has come from those sources, but it's sort of synthesized from like just the content that I've been kind of digesting over the past couple months.
Fair enough.
So one big thing that you may or may not have kind of like been aware of is that I think will become a bigger thing is these custom GPTs. So like ChatGPT themselves plus other companies and the idea is just that, so you could theoretically, if you want to use this technology, kind of run your own LLM model in AWS or whatever, if you want to, buy GPUs and stuff like that. Like that's like super involved. That's like I don't know many people that are going to actually do that. The majority of people will not. They will just use one of the different APIs or whatever. But one thing that I feel is like a kind of one of the lowest level ways of like trying a new type of use of this technology out is to use these custom GPTs where it is like ChatGPT, but you kind of give it instructions on how to act in a certain way, and it sort of like creates like a subset or maybe I'm not describing this well, but like it creates you're basically customizing it. You either giving it data to act on or giving it instructions and data that then it does like another thing or behaves in a certain way. And so this may seem like a whatever thing right now, but like potentially it'll be one of these things that'll be as big as like the iOS App Store, that like you're just going to have people. I mean, there's a school of thought that I don't know if this is going to happen, but like potentially that like just people are going to be creating all sorts of different custom GPTs that are just built off of like the base. You have the base model, and you kind of like give it additional stuff, then and get it out there. And then maybe maybe there is like just like the iOS store, there's some common way of like how everybody kind of shares this and uses it. So like a lot of that's kind of is still the Wild West a little bit. Like they're starting to figure this stuff out. But for sure, as developers, it's something that you should kind of be aware of and kind of look into if you get a chance. Another thing is this concept of prompt-driven development. Have you guys heard that term?
PDD.
So
yeah.
yeah.
Stop it.
So when you start writing code to interact with the APIs for ChatGPT or other related AI technologies, you're basically giving it prompts and then getting back, it's text and text, like one input of text, one output of a bunch of text, right? I mean, there are some variations, but like that's sort of basically it. And so there's this whole world of people who are doing this on a regular basis of like figuring out the best way to, like, when you do that, as you could imagine, like, okay, you want to take that block of text, you want to like make it more useful. So like, okay, how do you do that? Well, you can tell GPT to pass it back to you in a certain format. So it's like, okay, don't just send me a block of text. Why don't you tell me in this format or whatever? So then you can parse it. So like, basically there's starting to be, I haven't seen a good one yet, but there's starting to be people that are building essentially libraries on top of the API libraries to have like a certain easier protocol to, or framework and way of doing things or whatever else to work with the prompts in kind of an easier way. So that, just speaking of software development in general with these AI tools, that's like a second area of kind of I would recommend for people looking into prompt-driven development.
Interesting.
Okay.
Interesting.
Last thing,
I'm the prompt in Slack. Pretty much that's how it goes. So people ask me questions, a little question I answer, a little another question I answer. So I get it. Yeah.
So this last one is more of like this I didn't get from anybody else. It's sort of just something I've been thinking about. So the issue with, like, let's say you want to use AI to create a web page, a web app, let's say, like, so not just a static website, like a web app, like, and I don't mean just generating code for you. I mean like actually creating it for you. There's all sorts of problems with it. Like it doesn't do a good job of necessarily creating good code in the first place. Doing something as complex as like a full web app, like to do it exactly the way you want, it's a little bit beyond the capabilities of what it can do now. But in theory, I think that and I do think this will happen at some point, and I'm kind of throwing it out there to like maybe Angular will be the one that does this, is that you could work to the strengths of these AI tools and build a sort of web framework that works well with it, and train it in the right way. That would be part of it too, is training the AI in the right way to be able to trust it to actually build like legit web apps. So like, and maybe it's something that then you can further customize or whatever. But the key would be, it would be a marriage between the two, because you would want the actual technology of the web app to be easily able, like within the capabilities of what the AI can like generate and create, and for it to be able to like understand then subsequently, and you can like train it back and forth. So like it can't be the wild west. If you want to just create like an Angular app today in Angular syntax, I mean, it can help you along that way, but there's so many potential pitfalls and whatever, like it's not going to, but theoretically, if you set as your objective, you're like, okay, actually we are going to make Angular work really well with these tools and train these AIs on it, you could theoretically make it work a lot better.
Right.
So like, I think that at some point, maybe Angular's going to do it, I don't know, or maybe there'll be some new web framework that does that. I wouldn't be surprised if that happens, just kind of like with the direction that I see kind of things going and whatever else. And that would give people, it would be like a sort of even better kind of no codish type tool, or semi codish or whatever, to be able to like generate something pretty sophisticated, but then also like allow developers to kind of enhance it on top of that. So that's something that is just more for my own, like I didn't necessarily read about that anywhere. It's just something I've been thinking about that I think may happen at some point. Maybe it's something, Justin, after we build this testing tool, maybe that we should put that on deck to build that as well.
I mean, we got to be careful about scope creep, but yeah, I think that we should put that on the list, right, in the backlog.
Yeah.
That starts to combine with, the prompt-driven development. You think about, like, could we train the AI model saying, hey, look, if somebody asks you to build an Angular app, Angular trains it to say, ask these questions, right? Ask, you want the separation
I like that.
of your UI presentment from your data loading.
Yeah.
That important to you? Ask these couple of questions, and then it knows how to figure that answer. So it's about bridging that discussion gap with talking to the human. Right?
So actually, even though we're far away from being able to do exactly what I was thinking about, one thing you could do with what you're talking about is you could use one of these custom GPTs. So like right now with like literally what OpenAI has available with like creating a custom GPT, we could probably work with it a little bit to try to like give it some parameters, give it some data to work with to like become the Angular GPT.
Yeah, and Brocky, right now we've got schematics, but we don't have schematics on schematics on schematics, right? We need a schematic that knows which schematics to pick. And so it's kind of like that, right?
It's interesting that you bring that up, because I was like, I wonder how much of like code generation could happen at the project level that could take in parameters that we don't necessarily think about, that will use that as basically a root and then build upon that.
It honestly,
there's something there.
That last point made me understand the whole PDD better, because I was like, oh, I kind of get how you could get to a world like that where you are, you're almost, instead of writing code now, you're writing prompts that write code. So it's I get it.
Exactly.
It's kind of like what you talk about.
Now you got it, Alyssa.
There you go. It's all clear.
Eureka.
Yeah. It's like when you talk about explaining like non-technical stuff, right? And solutioning non-technical stuff. Like you're the gap, right? You're the one that's bridging the gap. You're going, okay, I need to ask them this question so that I can get the information I need to put them in the right direction. And it's that layer of that voice, that decision maker, right?
Yeah. I still think that it doesn't replace us as developers, but it does help bridge a gap, and it's a tool to put in our toolbox of how to generate code and create code.
Yeah. Now, we didn't talk about that point. Are we going to talk about that point about developer replacement?
Well, do you think that it will, Justin?
So here's my take on this, right? And I think so for me, I've always kind of been somebody that's looked at and going like, I'm going to stay up with the times no matter how old I get, right? But I'm kind of getting to a point now where I'm like, I'm exhausted. I kind of just want to let the new hotness stuff go. And I don't want it to be like, so like, I feel like I'm concerned personally about my experience with AI, because I'm kind of like, this may be that moment where I'm like, okay, everybody else can deal with it. I'm checking out. So I don't know. So that's my answer to that, right? Is like,
Justin has just accepted a managerial role.
Right? It's a transitional phase finally for me. I don't know.
Honestly, I don't know if it could. I feel like it's just not there. Like, I don't know. Development is hard, and it's like, it's vast. There is like, as soon as you can give us a playbook on exactly what our job is, then sure, a computer could do it. But like, it changes so often. Like, I don't know, not yet. What do you think? You think it could?
We're far away. We're far away from it being able to do a lot of the stuff that we do right now. But it'll chip away over time. And what I would say is, even when it gets to that point where it's able to do like a majority of the stuff we do today, there's still like two along the way. Okay, Justin, you don't want to stay on top of these tools, but like the people that do embrace them will always have work to do, like because it'll just increase their productivity, right? Yeah. But even outside of that, one thing, where did I see this? Or I'm trying to remember where. Oh, okay. Highly recommend the New York Times, The Daily, had a episode last week, I think, the week before, with Sam Altman before he got fired. Actually, it's kind of interesting. It was an interview like right before he got fired, which is kind of surreal in a sense, but a lot of good tidbits as part of it. And one of the things, I forget whether him or one of the hosts brings this up, is that there's always, even today, there is a huge market for artisanal output, artisanal products. So like building a house built by the Amish, okay, that is handcrafted, and it takes longer, it's way more expensive, but there's a huge market for that. People love buying that type of stuff, right? The same can probably be said in a future world where AI can build all of these things automatically and whatever else. There's always going to be a market for people that, like, it's never going to do things perfectly. Like, you're just going to accept like sort of the way that it does certain things. And obviously it's a different thing, like art and kind of craftsmanship is a different thing than writing code. But like there's some amount of, like, for sure for UI and UX, like you could say that that's just something that will never ever be able to be fully replaced by the computer, because it involves a certain amount of creativity of the human mind and whatever. But there's probably other like little small parts as well that like you'll be able to do certain things better. And it may be just like your markets will change, because some people will be like, well, I don't need to pay you for your more expensive hourly rate to do the way you do things. I'm just going to pay this cheaper rate to get this automatically generated thing. And that's fine, but there still will be a market for what you do.
Yeah, I think that's that whole thing of looking and going, well, is the purpose of it to produce these, apps that are fulfilling this business need or these sort of things, and can we get more efficient at that because there's this business model around that? But there's still this level at the heart of it of art. Like, I look at writing code as a form of art, right? And I think a lot of us on here on this panel and across the board have a passion about writing code, right? And it's not only solving problems, but it's also the elegance and the challenge and the beauty of typing on the keyboard and the experience of figuring out the solutions in your head and making them a reality, right? And the joy of the process of writing code. And so I think, to go to that point that you're talking about with the artisanal spot, is that I think there's still going to be that human drive for people to want to experience writing code in that fashion. And so as long as there's a purpose for doing that, right, or a form or a platform for people to, get joy out of doing that, then I think that writing code is always going to be there, right? If we look at it from that standpoint.
Or we're just old farts that don't know anything.
So
and we're just going to...
I don't know if you noticed me laughing as you were saying that, Justin, but as soon as you said that you view code as art, in my head, I didn't know how I would have phrased it, so I'll just put it on myself. That why is it so much of my code ends up looking like a Jackson Pollock painting?
Yours is interpretive art,
It's like, it's beautiful to you, right?
I love what Tyamba said. Even in sci-fi where AI is used, programmers still exist. My opinion, calculators didn't make mathematicians obsolete. It just enabled them to save time on tedious work. And I think this sums up exactly what you guys were saying. But I guess I want to pose a question, because I feel like once we have true sentient AI, then that's when we can ask that question, right? Because
that's when we fight back, right? I mean, that's what I've been trained on in the 80s.
I don't know about you, Justin, but in our household, we respect the overlords, and we say please and thank you to Siri and Google Home. So,
all right, you're in that Simpsons camp of the overlords. I got it. Okay.
But do you think we'll see it? Do you guys think we'll see it?
I'm definitely in the camp that we're far away from that.
Okay. Okay.
It's amazing the stuff that we've been able to do, but like, it's language parsing. It's not true intelligence.
No, you're right.
It's not true consciousness, which is like, there's a lot of thought going into that or whatever, but that's like a whole other thing
right.
That, maybe we may or may not get to. And people have different, trust me, there's people out there who think it's closer than you think, but I don't know. My own personal opinion, I guess, is that we're still far away from that.
Sometimes it's just one wrong answer that sets the world on fire, though. So if this thing's just answering questions,
Yeah,
we got to be concerned, right?
So that doesn't mean that there aren't dangers, for sure. So like, even though there's not full sentience, we could really screw things up with even this level of technology.
How can we screw things up with this level of technology?
Yeah. So let's say we're writing. We ask AI to write software to manage some diabetic pump. Right.
Yeah.
There's super risk or anything in the health or anything like that. If we're trusting, some other non-human reviewed code to write code, sure, you could argue that, hey, there's maybe that's going to cover more situations, but there's this possibility that we just ship it to production and people who use software, products that are using software are impacted by that sort of thing. Okay. Right. That's scary way.
That makes sense. Okay. I see you.
Wow, that was a sad one. Sorry, we got to end in a happy thing.
Yeah. Ending on a sad note.
We love you, AI. You're going to be great. Everything's going to be wonderful.
Oh, man.
No, my husband has the same thought as you, Jeff, because I'm always like, you think we're getting close? And he's like, not even, Alyssa. Like, we're nowhere near sentience. I'm like, all right, I just want to see it in my lifetime, guys. I don't think I'm gonna, but I just want to see it. It'd be freaking cool. Mike,
yeah, like buying cars, right?
I'm older than you. I'm not gonna see it.
Oh, lots of great food for thought, though. Thank you guys for having this conversation. Jeff bringing it up and coming on. That's good stuff.
Thank you for having me.
I'm very optimistic, though. I know there's a lot of people in the negative camp, but I love all these use cases that you gave us.
I'm optimistic as well. I agree.
Yeah, it was great to hear all these because for me, it's kind of been, oh, well, you're thinking a lot about AI writing this stuff up front, right? And all these other points of like, oh, use it for here, use it for testing, right? Use it for debugging. Like that's a great thing to kind of be exposed to and start thinking about. It's like, oh, okay, it's a tool for those spots too, not just go build me an Angular app, right? And it comes back and they'll do a smooth app. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
Excellent. Well, any last comments or thoughts on AI before we move on to picks, if anyone has one? Anything? All right. And Mike or Justin, do either of you have a pick? Mike, what do you got?
I told you I was hopping on Amazon. Most of the slingshots, 3-person operated, and have a range of about 500 yards. So,
wait, is 500 yards enough? How big is an audience on average?
Like maybe 30 yards.
Excellent. So
yeah. We're gonna leave bruises.
I'm gonna make sure we're gonna bring Jeff on stage to help us fire this because we need 3 people. So we're actually gonna make you aim, Jeff. So just I don't know, get some practice in or something.
Yeah, you aim, you get the blame. That's
yes,
what I'm saying.
yes.
Oh,
hey,
I am an expert. I will launch it right into someone's face.
Excellent.
It'll be great.
All right, Justin, you got any picks? Anything you want to highlight this week?
Nah, no picks.
All right. I've been playing Ark lately. They have a new release, and it is a big game changer. So check it out if you ever loved the original Ark. I'm a very big I don't know what that genre is, build and survive type. Survival. Is that my husband's over here whispering survival?
Is that the one where you got to find wood and dinosaur poop and stuff to survive to get started?
Yep. Yeah, it's basically Minecraft in a dinosaur-filled world. It's nice. I like it. I don't know. I love survival games. I'm all about it. What? Mike, why are you laughing? Why are you laughing, Mike?
Because I went to Jim Carrey and Ace Ventura.
Yep. When he's climbing out of the is that the wrong?
The bats.
Oh, the bats. Mm-hmm. He's my all-time favorite actor. At one point, I went through every movie he's ever been in, and there's some old weird movies he's been in. So.
Yeah.
All right, Jeff, you got anything to highlight this week? What you got?
Yeah, my pick is so I'm going to NGConf actually because I'm going to be working there on my new documentary. Documentary series that I've talked to Justin about called Tech Time Rewind, where I'm basically highlighting some seminal talks from the past decade. So, further in the past that were really great talks at the time. Everybody loves them. and kind of giving the story behind the story of like some interesting things that happened, before, leading up to it, and after. But then even its impact, today, like how things have changed, today from what people thought about back then. So there's actually at NGConf, I'm going to be interviewing a whole bunch of people as part of that. So it's actually a couple of different shows that we're going to be working on at the same time. So I'm sure I'll grab each of you for different ones to get some sound bites and some interesting.
Are you going to be like in the
thing.
hallway, tucked away in a side room? How do people?
Yeah, so I worked out with Frosty. They're going to find some area for me to set up in, to have like an interview room, and then I'll kind of like be pulling people in throughout the conference to kind of talk. And a lot of them will be stuff, some talks from NGConf, but then some other ones as well that some of you have been at. And so even if you didn't give them yourself, I'm sure you guys watched at the time and can give commentary. It's going to be like VH1's Behind the Music. It's going to be like very hip and fast paced. So I'm looking forward to it.
Amazing. Can't wait. Well, thank you again so much for your time, for your thoughts, and for the energy you put into our community. I appreciate you, Jeff.
Have a good one, guys.
All right, we're signing off. Bye, everybody.
See you.
Angular Air is sponsored by Kendo UI for Angular. We have over 100 components built from the ground up in Angular or each framework and library that it's built for. So not only do we have Angular on the JavaScript side, but we have Kendo UI for React, jQuery, and Vue as well. And if you're on the .NET side of life, we have things for Blazor, Maui, WPF, and so much more. All of our libraries are themable, customizable, and of course come with killer professional support. So try it out for free today at kendoui.com.